I learned, in the most painful way, that jealousy can destroy this much. I'm from South Africa, born and raised in Durban. My family is my whole world. Back then, life was hard. So hard that sometimes we couldn't even afford rice for dinner. My father passed away when I was still young, leaving behind me my mother, my younger sister Kaya, and my cousin brother, Johan. Johan's parents had died years earlier, so he lived with us like a family.
So you had to grow up really fast.
Yes, I worked day and night in South Africa, but nothing ever worked out. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I managed to save funds, just enough to fly to Canada. There, I found a job as a security guard. When I sent my first paycheck home, my mother cried on the phone. Johan and Kaya could finally go back to school. For the first time, things looked hopeful. A few months later, I met someone. She was smart, kind, and like me, far from home. Her family had struggled just like mine. Over time, we fell in love and I proposed. My mother adored her even from just a photograph. I still remember Mom laughing, saying, "Now all our jealous relatives will have something real to talk about." We got married quietly in Canada. No one knew except Mom. Not even my siblings. I didn't want distractions for them while they studied. My wife and I worked hard, saved every cent to open a small business. Life finally felt good. I told her, "It's time to go home. I'll introduce you to Mom, Johan, and my little sister Kaya. You can see your own family too." She only had her father and 2 younger brothers left. Her mother had passed away years earlier. When we arrived back home, no one knew I was married. Relatives, friends, all in the dark. Only Mom knew. And when she met my wife, they bonded instantly. That's every man's dream, right? For his mother and wife to be like best friends.
That's rare. Usually it's the opposite.
Yeah. And I thought that meant our home was happy, untouchable. I was wrong. A few days later, I told my wife, "It's your turn now. You should visit your father. I'm sure he misses you terribly." She hadn't seen her family in years. When I finally met them, I realized how warm they truly were. Good-hearted people. The kind you instantly feel at home with. We stayed there for a few days. Back at my house, something strange happened. The very relatives who despised us suddenly showed up at our door. You know how it is. When success finally comes to you, even your worst critics want to be close. I welcomed them anyway, offered tea, and treated them well. But after the formalities, they turned to my mother and said they wanted to marry their daughter to me. Mom stayed silent, but I answered for her, "I'm already married. My wife is abroad right now." I lied about her location because I didn't trust these people. I didn't want my wife anywhere near their envy. They didn't believe me. They called me a liar, insisted I wasn't married. And it turned into an argument. They threw my past in my face, and I finally let out everything I'd held inside. I said clearly, even if I wasn't married, I'd never accept this proposal.
That must have really humiliated them.
I'd tasted success, and they hated me for it. One of them finally snapped. Their younger son picked up a stone and hurled it straight at my sister, Kaya. How could anyone be so ignorant, so cruel? Kaya was only 16. I called the police instantly. The guy was arrested and spent a month in jail. By God's grace, Kaya recovered from her injury. But then, something darker began. A woman from their family came to my door and said, "You ruined my son's life. Now I will ruin yours. All of yours." My wife had just returned home and saw the whole scene. That woman even looked at her and said, "I'll destroy you too, along with your husband." We stayed silent. Mom argued with her, but then we thought it would end there. But her threat, it was real. Months passed, and God blessed us with a baby boy. I was overjoyed. I never imagined someone's evil eye could reach us. My siblings were thriving. They had just finished high school and entered college. They'd stay up late studying for their exams. Kaya was the brightest student in our family. And then the most terrifying night of my life came. It's burned into my memory like fire on dry wood. Around midnight, A scream tore through the house. Kaya's scream. And trust me, I've never heard anything like it before. It wasn't human. It was raw, like something dying. I jumped out of bed and ran straight to Kaya's room. Mom was already there, gripping her cheeks hard, trying to stop her from biting her own tongue. Her eyes had rolled completely white. Her skin was pale, her whole body shaking as if something inside her wanted out. And the sound, God, that sound from her throat, like an animal being slaughtered. Even now, just talking about it makes my hair stand on end. Suddenly, Kaya went limp, completely unconscious. We rushed her to the hospital in the middle of the night. The doctor examined her and said, "There's nothing wrong with her. No illness at all." I even took her to the best specialists I could find. Same answer. Healthy. Perfectly fine. Days passed. Then one afternoon, we were out in the little garden behind our house, trimming and clearing up. Johan had a hoe in his hand. I called again, louder. Still nothing. The third time I shouted. He turned to me, and his eyes, God help me, they were full of hate. I asked, "Johan, are you okay?" But instead of replying, he swung the hoe at me, full force. It smashed into my head. Blood poured down my face, and for a moment, the world went black. And then, just like Kaya had screamed earlier, Johan started convulsing, shrieking with the same raw, terrified sound. Mom and Kaya rushed over in panic. When Mom saw my bleeding head and Johan collapsed on the ground, she fainted on the spot. She must have thought we'd been fighting. But this wasn't Johan. I'd never even heard him raise his voice at me. Even with blood dripping into my eyes, I scooped him up and carried him inside. My wife tied a cloth around my head while Johan lay unconscious. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. Just then, my father-in-law arrived, a good man who'd always stood by me. I told him everything. Hospitals can't figure this out. What do we do now? He said. If doctors can't help, find a man of faith, a true healer. The next day, I took Johan and Kaya to a respected spiritual guide nearby. He visited our house. His face was grave, his voice steady. What I'm about to tell you, he said, will shake you to your core. My chest tightened. What is it, sir? He spoke softly. Your cousin and sister. Sometimes they leave the house. They go out and eat meat taken from graves. If, on one of those nights, they don't get it, they could attack someone. Just like Johan attacked you. The words hit me like ice water. My voice trembled. Who's doing this to them? Why? He paused, then said, this is black magic, powerful and dangerous. Someone wants your entire family destroyed. I felt my knees weaken. He warned me, don't tell Johan and Kaya. Watch for yourself. See it with your own eyes. That same night, I woke to faint movement. I saw Johan slip out quietly. I followed him into the garden behind our house, and what I saw froze my blood. He was crouched on the ground, eating raw flesh, like wild animals. I wanted to scream, but my voice died in my throat. My legs felt buried in the earth. I whispered his name. No response. I called louder, again and again. He didn't even look at me. When I shouted, he lunged at me and sank his teeth into my arm, hard enough to draw blood. Pain ripped through me, and then, just as suddenly, he collapsed unconscious. Everyone else was horrified. I couldn't sleep that night. The pain was unbearable. At dawn, I rushed to the spiritual guide. He said, I'll take you to someone stronger tomorrow. But tonight, stay close. Don't leave them alone. That night, I decided to sleep in Johan's room. My wife and mom stayed with Kaya. Sometime in the night, a strange noise jolted me awake. It was coming from the room, the one where we kept firewood, like bones snapping, like someone chewing raw meat. My soul trembled. I turned on my phone's flashlight and crept toward the door, barely breathing. Inside, the sight nearly broke me. Johan, my cousin, had chewed through his own arm. And as I stood there frozen, that same terrifying force took over him again, twisting his body, his eyes white as ash. I couldn't take it. The world spun. and I blacked out. When I woke up, Mom told me Johan was in the hospital. I didn't waste a second. I went straight to the spiritual guide and told him everything. Even he looked shaken. He said, "There's only one man who can handle this. A master exorcist. I'll take you to him." Despite all the tension, I felt a small sense of relief. At least nothing had happened to my sister again. Kaya seemed much better than before. The master came to our house. When I explained my situation and mental state, even he looked worried. He said, "If the doctors can't help, then this is black magic." And then suddenly our entire house began to shake. Like an earthquake. The walls, the roof, everything trembled. When it finally stopped, I asked, "What was that?" He said, "I did something to force out whatever spirits are here. At least for a while. They won't return." But then, a foul stench began to rise, like rotting flesh. Our house had always been spotless. Where could such a smell even come from? The guide said, "Whoever cursed you has now suffered great loss. Their spell is broken. For now, you're safe." I thanked him from the bottom of my heart. When I dropped him back home, I served him in every way I could. But that was only the first chapter of this story. The second chapter was yet to begin. Some time passed without any trouble. I expanded my business. Johan and Kaya's health had improved, hoping they could finally live a normal life. But then, one night, something happened I can never forget. I woke up to Mom shaking me urgently. "Get up! Johan took Kaya!" Her voice sent a chill straight through me. We rushed outside into the garden toward Johan's room. What I saw there, I can't even bring myself to describe. I'll just say this. By dawn, my sister Kaya had left this world. I didn't have the strength to face it. I collapsed to the ground. Maybe that was better. I was disoriented and terrified. I tried to reach the master, but couldn't. I locked my brother in his room. We buried my sister. 3 days after her funeral, my brother was still inside that room. We would leave food outside his door, but every morning it was untouched, as if no one had even breathed on it. I was able to find and reach the master, he said. "This magic, it's stronger than before." He let out a deep sigh and said, "Son, in my entire life, I've only encountered this once before. There's a rare kind of black magic where an evil spirit, something like a demon, takes hold of the victim. It hungers for raw flesh. First it feeds on animals, but if none are around it turns to humans. Your sister may have fallen victim to it as well." Then he looked at me gravely. "I can't handle this anymore." Hearing this, my legs felt weak. My chest tightened as if I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even form words. The thought that something not even human had torn my sister apart made my stomach churn. I fell at his feet and begged him, "Please, find a way to end this. I've already lost my sister," but he said he cannot help. Around that time, disaster struck my business. A sudden crisis in another city required my immediate presence. Something I couldn't ignore, no matter how much I wanted to stay home. Every fiber of my being told me not to leave, but I had no choice. I promised myself I'd return within a day, but when I came back the very next day, as I neared my house, I heard my baby son crying loudly. Yet there was no sound from my wife or mother. And what terrified me most, though it was blistering hot outside, inside the house it felt like an icy snowstorm. I rushed inside and ran straight to my son. He was wrapped tightly in a sheet, wailing uncontrollably. My wife was lying right beside him, dead. The same horrific fate had reached her, and the stench of her body had already begun to spread. I screamed and threw myself over her, sobbing uncontrollably. My clothes were soaked in blood. Imagine it. The person you love most, suddenly gone in such a brutal way. My heart shattered. I cried until I couldn't breathe. It was then that my mother returned home, her hands full of grocery bags. The moment she walked in and saw me holding my wife's lifeless body, she froze, the bag slipping from her hands and crashing to the floor. Her face went completely pale. Then she let out a scream so piercing it echoed through the entire house. She collapsed to her knees, clutching her head, wailing in disbelief. I had never seen her break like that. When I tried to find my brother, he was nowhere to be seen. I never found my brother, and after that moment, nothing was ever the same.